Hello, everyone out there. This is Matt Lasker here with another edition of the Pat and Go Show. Apologies. My typical co-host, Facil Blango, is actually at a 7-on-7 tournament this weekend and tonight, so he's not going to be able to join us. But that's okay. We have a special guest coming in here today, and we're going to welcome in Coach Pro, as I know a lot of his players call him. How you doing, Coach?
I'm doing really good, man. I appreciate us reuniting, man, and connecting and having this just come together tonight, man. I'm super excited.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm excited too, and we're going to get the whole backstory going. And let me just give a little bit of a teaser for that, because we are going to kind of talk a little bit about what's going on in everyone else's world right now with youth football. But me and Coach Pro, I used to know him as Dougie back in the day. Doug. We had connected. He was from the Bay Area here from a city that's not too far away from where I grew up, called Vacaville, California. And his grandmother and my mom, who was the age of everybody else's grandmother, were church friends and became fast friends through our churches, connecting. And Doug and I ended up hanging out a few times back in the day. And then with this whole thing with youth coaching and high school coaching that we've been doing on all these platforms, Doug reached out, and I immediately, before he even told me who he was, I remember, hey, is that you, Dougie? Like, that was so funny.
Yeah, man, that was really unique, and especially when you see, that reconnect, and we're both doing the exact same thing in a different place, and that's kind of how we kind of connected too. With my grandmother was a huge Notre Dame fan, a huge De La Salle fan, and I remember, getting connected with you was a part of the healing process after my mom died. My grandmother took over and was raising me and taking me down to De La Salle practices and keep me involved with football and trying to cut a path for me. And in that path, you were on that path with your family. And I remember my grandmother wanted us to connect because you were killing it at the time at Monte Vista. I remember you were on your way to Nevada. And I wanted to go to Nevada and play for Chris Alt myself. So I really thought it was neat, man, and looked up to you a lot. You're a little older than me. But I thought it was really neat, man. We ended up going to Mexico, I believe, right? On a church trip.
Church mission.
Right. Helping some kids and some really, really poor families down there. That was a really interesting trip, eye-opening experience, that right across the border, people suffering and struggling, and it really taught me a lot about life and how to appreciate what you have, and how to support our Latino communities at the same time, be better. So, man, really neat, man. I appreciate the journey. I appreciate what football does for all of us, man. It just brings us together and puts us in a situation where we can really help kids. So I thought that was really neat.
Yeah, no, and I think that's the biggest thing is, like, for whatever reason, football has given us a certain path in life. And even if it isn't your complete path, like, I feel like I could have been a coach this whole time, and I probably should have been, but I didn't take that path. But like we just said before we came on the air, life goes in full circle a lot of times, and it happens when it's supposed to happen. So I'm a firm believer that this is the time and the place that we're supposed to reconnect. And for whatever reason, I think this is the time when you can come on this show and really drop some knowledge for a lot of our coaches out there, because as we're going to get into, you started off a lot of the same way. These youth coaches are starting off, right? They're getting back into the game. They've kind of found that passion to coach again. You have had a ton of success at the youth level, parlay that into moving on to the high school level, and you're killing it there too. So I can't wait to get into all that real quick with you. But first, we're just going to do a real quick check-in, because we've been getting, since the season has started, for so many of these coaches that are in our group. And as you probably know, we have this middle school air raid group, but it's really for youth and middle school coaches that want to spread the ball around, really help out the numbers, especially with the low numbers that are pretty much everywhere, trying to spread the ball around instead of just giving it to a feature back. Like back in the day, I used to love it, right? Because I was the only one getting the ball. But as a coach and as a advocate for football, we want to make sure everyone's having fun. And if you have 5 receivers that can compete and add value to a team, let's spread it out. So, we're trying to use the air raid offense to help the game of football. And we believe, the pipeline starts at the youth level, and that will hopefully refeed those freshman teams. I mean, Doug, there's teams, Cal High in San Ramon doesn't have a freshman team anymore. Yeah. Bishop O'Dowd, where my college roommate at Nevada is the head coach of the freshman team, they're gone. They now have a frosh soft team. Like, it's even these major programs out here, numbers are crushing them. So hopefully we can help turn the tide, right?
I've done some research on why that's been happening, and you see it across the United States, man. I mean, I kind of blame it on the cell phone, instant gratification. It's taking them, when we were younger, we used to knock on the door every day after school. Hey, you want to come out and play? Everything was different. It was like you'd hit 5, 6 houses. Who's coming outside? Those days are over. A lot of the communication has a lot to do with, social media platform, the cell phone, how they communicate. Sometimes that takes away accountability. It takes away learning how to, communicate and have a job interview someday. So I really try to put an emphasis with my kids about, personal relationships, looking somebody in the eye, teaching them those life skills that you need on a daily basis on how to be a good dude and a solid dude and how to keep your word on everything, that you do in life, point blank, period. And I tell people all the time, for me, football saved my life, but football is a tool, man. It's a tool that we always have to keep in our toolbox and know that, we have to use this tool the right way. It's not just, not everyone can do this. I tell you, you could have the best team in the United States, right? We had my organization, we thrive with just neighborhood kids, and we train at a super elite level. Like I'm so OCD, and I'm not a big social media. I'm not a big YouTube guy. I'm not going to share my secrets that I've spent hours and years creating and refining based on how can I make that a football realistic situation in my training? And let's just cut it down. And a lot of coaches on the youth level, when I first got started, I wanted to please everybody. I wanted to make sure this guy was okay and everybody was okay, everybody good. Well, that takes away focus from the kids. The key word for me is delegation and putting down, if this is your job as an assistant coach on the youth level, high school level, that this has to be fulfilled every day. And there was times where I coached offense by myself. I was the OC, the DC, specialty. I was everything on my team, but I just had what's called assistants to help do hit charts for me and worked at a real unique level. Being dyslexic, you look at things in a different way. So I had to find a way to accommodate my coaching ways and I'm a very strong personality too on the field, right? So communication is key. And once I found that system and learned how to delegate but still maintain control, and the reason I did that is because I wanted to be patient to find someone who was as good as me or someone that I could train. Because at the end of the day, you have to find a fit with your coaching staff because the kids are watching everything that you do. And if you want to set a prime example, to coach at an elite level and have success, and that's always not dictated by the scoreboard, coach. The scoreboard doesn't dictate. To me, I tell the kids it creates fear. That right there can scare us. We're not going to look at it. We're just going to focus on one play at a time. We're going to be perfect. We're going to execute this scheme perfectly in between a 4-second margin, and I've just found ways to be super successful, but at the same time, now training my athletes that have graduated, that are coming back, that want to help kids and coach, finding all these unique people that have just came into my life that have that same passion and training them on how I feel this is what's going to make us successful on the youth high school level. But youth football for me is it's the core, man. It's the core. Like, it's how you layer teaching. It's how you layer it. It's keeping things simple. We only had, I think, 12 plays. That was it. Yep. But we executed these plays and trained execution as many different ways as we could find, visually, through media, through, I bought 11 tackling dummies just for kickoff, so that we tackle 11 bags every time that we kicked off. I would spend that extra money because there's no way that I can get this perfect if the resources and the tools aren't there to train the kids properly, you know. So I've been really, I'm in love with the sport. You know, I'm in love with how to take a kid that doesn't know anything and how to turn him into something using strength and weights, using mobility, flexibility, right, but incorporating that into football and having them be multiple sport athletes, you know, wrestling and baseball, basketball, and all those things too run in conjunction. But yeah, man, I don't know if I'm getting a little long-winded, but.
No. Let me set you up now then. So just for everyone that knows that I wanted to say this, and we'll get into your full resume, but let me just focus on the youth right now. So you've been coaching over 16 years in general. You started off at the youth, and I want you to tell your story, but just so you guys know, he has had 12 state titles in youth football, 4 national titles, and a record of 237-12. Okay, so I don't even know what offense you ran, to be quite honest. It sounds like, 12 plays is perfect. That goes right in line with our air raid teachings. We literally have 10, and you just out execute everybody.
Right.
But just wanted you guys to know, while Coach Pro is a big time high school coach right now, as he's already mentioned, he believes in the youth programs. He believes that's where it starts, and he's had a ton of success. So, with that, I just wanted to kind of set the table for you. So why don't you just tell us your journey? Because I'd love them to know how you got into youth football. And maybe he starts up a little bit back further than that, so they know how you got to that point. But would love them to know that, and then how you found so much success at the youth level with what you did. Well,
I'll tell you what, it was definitely God's path, man. I was in high school and I was playing ball my senior year, and I had a lot of issues. I had a lot of anger issues, temper issues. Was hanging around some people shouldn't have been hanging around. That typical high school type stuff. Well, I think, I ran into a situation that got really out of hand, and I reacted wrong and made a huge mistake my senior year and was expelled from school. And within a 2-week time period, ended up behind bars and was in jail my senior year, facing some assault charges from a fight that really got out of hand, where I lost control. And I was very young, and I thought I had it all figured out. I had a lot of scholarship offers at the time, was talking to a lot of schools, thought that I was just untouchable, and my attitude wasn't good, and it wasn't very grounded, and I didn't have a lot of mentorship. I was trying to figure things out on my own, and also taking care of myself kind of financially at that time, not living at home, not having a place to live that I called home at the time, even though my father was a phenomenal resource that I just didn't take advantage of. I really didn't. And I made some mistakes, and it led for me, sitting inside of a California youth facility where my high school team won the section title. And I lost all my scholarships. A year later, I got out of jail and started my life over at 18 years old, turning 19 as a felon. And I really didn't know, what to do at the time. I was getting these odd end jobs, working with convicts, working with people that weren't going anywhere in life. And I decided that can't be me. And I can't let my mistakes and what that decision was that day define who I'm going to be, as a person for the rest of my life. Well, I'll tell you what, it did for 11 and a half years. I couldn't get a job that made consistent money that didn't just punish my body, at the time. I tried to go to Diablo Valley College. Coach was trying to give me a scholarship there, Solano community, because I was a phenomenal football player, that just lost control and was doing some great things. But you know what? I didn't deserve to get a scholarship. I say that now. I didn't deserve. I wasn't ready to serve a coach and a school the way that a school and a coach should be served. I was too selfish. And I paid the price for that. I had my first son when I was 19 and a half. So it was just kind of out of nowhere, well, I want to make this work. I've always wanted to have a son. I used to pray for a family, when I was in jail. You know, I used to pray for things because I had nothing in there. When you have nothing, you know, you have to find out who you are and how you think. And that time for me was really special. And believe it or not, I got to kind of plan my life in there. And I got to set some goals. And I had the biggest fight of my life, which was getting rid of my charges. And for 12 years, you know, I stayed out of trouble. I ended up moving to Texas because I wanted to get out of Fairfield, California, you know, and Vallejo, because it was rough living. You know, I'm from the Bay Area, and went to Fairfield High, and you know, I just wanted a fresh start, and I found that fresh start, and having a son really helped me get back on track, staying out of the same areas that I used to hang out in and used to be around. And my son first was a blessing. And what happened was I ended up saying, you know what? One of my best friends got murdered, and I knew it was time to go. And I moved to Texas. I got a job opportunity there where I had to work underneath another license at the time to try to get my contracting license, which I ended up being denied because of my past. And I kept having all these denials and all these no's. And I said, you know what, I'm just going to stay being a good dad, and I'm going to find a way to find out how I could be successful and get this stuff, you know, get rid of this stuff, you know. And I ended up going through, you know, a time with their mom where we weren't getting along very well. And I missed football so much that I had stopped by school about 2003-ish. Out in Texas, and it was my third day in a row that I had stopped by, and this big old country dude, you know, walks up to the side of my door, and he's knocking on the window, and he's like, roll down, you know. I rolled down, he goes, hey, Bubba, you know, where you from, man? You know, you've been out here 3 days in a row. You spying on us or something? And I said, no, sir, man, I'm just watching, man. I just miss football so much. And
you were watching their practice?
I just watching practice. You know, I just pulled up on the side of the fence in my truck, you know.
Love it.
Oh, that's cool, you know. And so what they did is they said, hey, you've been here for 3 days in a row, you know, and if you're going to show up every day, you might as well get out the car and help us coach, because you look like you played ball before, man. And I said, yeah, I did play ball. I said, I miss it a lot, and I'd actually love to come and see what you're doing. You know, and I go out there and I walk, and I'm just kind of hovering the perimeter of their practice. And it just brought back all these feelings. And I started to be out there, and I didn't know it at the time, but I was kind of critiquing what they were doing a little bit, and started, that don't look so hot. That's definitely not the stance he should be in. Right? I started naturally doing these things where I was like, my love and my perfection for how the sport's supposed to look like and be played. The first day I noticed that it wasn't what it needed to be, and I always had that vision. See, God gives you that. Not everybody has that, you see. And when I saw that, I said, well, I used the word, can I make a suggestion? Because in Texas, you can step on somebody's toes without even knowing it, you know. And I said, can I make a suggestion? And I said, he said, yeah, what's your suggestion, coach? And I said, that you hire me, and I'll be back tomorrow, and I'm going to help you with some of this stuff if you don't mind. He said, coach, you help. He goes, coach, we only won one game this season. It was against the worst team in the league. And we need all the help we can get, man. I said, all right, cool. So I came back out, and they only had like 4 games left. And the defensive coordinator got sick, man. He had like kidney stone, wasn't going well. And they asked, hey, Coach D, can you take over the defense? And I'm thinking, oh, Lord, you want me to call plays now? Okay. Well, when that happened, the pressure of having a game 4 days away forced me to just dive into this deep hole. You know, it's like going into a room that no one's in, right? Don't bother, leave me alone. And I put together a little chess scheme on paper, and I started playing chess. Okay, if we can do this, we're going to call it this. Gave them about 4 simple little schemes, couple simulated blitzes, which I didn't even know were simulated blitzes at the time. And we won on a defensive stance against a team they've never beat before. And the next game, the kids' reaction to me was like being, you know, it was almost like being on stage at a rock concert, and, you know, you got a hit song or something. It was that type of feeling it brought to me. And I knew that I could help. I knew that now this is how I could change people. This is how I could give back, because I do have a lot of knowledge, and the way that I explain things, the kids really receive it. One of my parents, who's known me for about 15 years, they said, you are a kid magnet. He said, kids they're so attracted to who you are and just how you carry yourself, to where the way you communicate with them, being this big, strong, tough guy, it's like you have 100 different languages, and you'll figure out how the kid works and how he processes things, and you'll find a way to explain it perfectly, and it gives them so much confidence. So that has a lot to do with, I think, a gift that I didn't have that somebody else kind of revealed to me. Like, yeah, I know I'm like that, but I've never had anybody say it. So from there, we had a successful season. We ended up 3 games out of the 4 I coached. So I felt pretty good about that. And then I literally walked away, realized that my marriage and my life, my personal life, wasn't on track to be successful either. So I ended up taking a break from football for a while. And then we ended up moving to Arizona on accident. I was on my way back to California. I couldn't get the business off the ground. I couldn't get the job and the money that I needed to support my family in Texas. And I said, this is time for a change. So on my way back to California, my father says, hey, I just moved to Arizona. Let's just come check me out. Come say hi. Come look, out here. Like, he really didn't want me going back home. And for the first time in my life, I really started to listen to him, because I knew that even though we didn't always see eye to eye and connect sometimes on a personal level, I knew that my dad loved me unconditionally and was always there to support me and be there. And I said, it's time to start being a son, too, a good son. And
goes both ways, huh?
Yeah, and I took his advice, and same situation happened. Put my son in local city league flag football. I'm sitting in practice underneath the tree, right? Because it's hot, and I'm a big dude, so I'm looking for some shade. I got my towel on me right now, right? And I'm looking for some shade, and the coach walks over after the 3rd practice, and he's such a big dude that I could probably hide behind him, right? That's how big this dude was. He's bigger than me, and I'm about 300. So he says, Coach, I'm getting real sick, and I need you to take over this team, because you could look around. I don't think there's any other parents that can do it. And I said, how you know that I've coached football before? He goes, you just look like a football player. Same exact situation, I'm like, man, this is crazy. So he gets sick, and it's just flag. Then I take it over, and me, I'm like, you're coming over here. We're moving you over here. Once we find out what the skill sets are at, and then we go undefeated. And then I said, I'm going to do it for the next season. We go undefeated. And then the next year, a youth football coach who ends up, this dude's probably one of my best friends to this day, just a phenomenal dude. My boy Jay Gorley found me on a football field, and he was like, man, you tight, man, you special. We got a tackle football organization. We're starting. We love you to be a part of it, And so we start having these meetings back 2005, 6, and we formed this little organization within a league that we're playing. And I'm just kind of learning how things work in Arizona. Not too fond of, they got a fall league, a spring league. They even got winter leagues out here. Because the weather permits year-round football, right? So
wow.
Next thing you know, I coached within an organization, didn't have a lot of success because of the leadership, not as far as coaching, but the structure of the organization, their financial situation, how they handle the uniforms and the money. I said, this is kind of a clown operation. We're going to move on and try to figure something else out that's more structured, that families will respect and support. And you know what? Not to talk bad about that situation, but that's just how I saw it. It wasn't organized. It wasn't right. And I started my own organization real slow, and got some kids together, loved on them, coached them up. We made it to the playoffs our first year of ever coaching, right?
Well, what age group is that?
We started off with 8 and 9-year-olds.
Love it. Me too.
So I just took a little group, and then I took them into high school. And by our second year, we won the state title. The next year won the state title. Next year won the state title 3 years in a row. So I put this group into high school, and then I really started to polish and sharpen my sword a lot. And
hey, before we move on to that, I wanted to ask you about that, because when you were telling me about the state titles and stuff, out here in Cali's obviously a lot bigger than Arizona, but I'm just curious how those work. Is it like through Pop Warner? Like, were you guys part of Pop Warner, and Pop Warner has like a state tournament that that those teams can enter, or are you guys like independents going to a state tournament that anybody can enter? How does that work?
Well, they got so what out in Arizona they have American Youth Football was the main. Them and Pop Warner were the main two leagues out here for fall, right? Then they had back in the day, it was kind of introductory type league where if you were a good team working your way up to kind of be on more of an elite level, you played in NYS in the fall, right? Mm-hmm. But now what happened is all the teams would go play spring together. So you had Pop Warner, AYF, everybody else in the spring. So in Arizona, spring football here back in the day, it was on. I mean, it was like, a lot of the varsity coaches in the Valley were had youth football teams, back then. It was super competitive. And
that's awesome. That's really smart, actually.
You're talking hundreds of teams in the Valley. You're talking millions of people out here in the Valley. So we formed, all these teams. So what happened is over time, it kind of condensed to where these leagues started kind of disappear, not have as many numbers, still around, but not thriving like they used to. And then the leagues that are providing certain services now will take over. And I don't know how everything works exactly now, how it's structured, but I know that the National Youth Sports League down here is about 250 teams, I've heard, all over the Valley, and have kind of merged with AYF, merged with Pop Warner a little bit in seasons, and that's how it's kind of exploded. So we would have what was our fall AYF state championship, which was played in ASU, right? We played at ASU. Nice. We played at all these really nice, cool fields. And then if you won your championship, you would be able to advance into Florida, right? And we go out there to Florida and we play, the Elite Eight is what they call it. So they bring out the top 8 elite teams from all over the United States in those regions and sections: Alabama, Florida, New York, Philadelphia. And they put us all, Texas, they put us all in a bracket, and we would go. And California, the Solano Warriors, I know you're familiar with them, right?
Yep.
Right. So they were undefeated. I don't think they ever were beat. And we met them out in nationals in Florida, and we won by 1 point, 17-16. I think it was the first loss they had ever been delivered, in their whole. And they were phenomenal. I mean, those kids were just absolutely coached up. They were amazing. And it was really neat to be able to play, your back home, team essentially out of, the Bay Area. So that was really neat. But that second generation of kids was a real special group for me.
You took them from 8 to 9, then had them next year when they were 9 and 10, and then had them the next year when they were, and you climbed the ladder with them. Yeah, won titles at three generations. So we would go 8, 9 years old. The first group I took over was 10, 11. So we took 10, 11 into high school, 8 years old into high school, 8 years old into high school. By this time, I got asked to coach the junior national team for AYF, right, the all-star team, and I met Scooter Molander down at Brophy, and he saw me coach at a practice, pulled me up in an office, and just loved, everything about what I was doing and offered me a job. And Brophy is a private Jesuit Catholic school down here in the Valley, powerhouse football program for years, won some state titles, kind of like a De La Salle of Arizona and how they run their whole situation. So I had the blessing of working there for almost 3 years. I was there little over 3 years. And nice. I'll tell you what, it catapulted my life because the relationships that I made there and what I learned there, I was being prepped into how to be a good head coach in high school and didn't even really know it at the time, and kind of worked my way up and was offered my first head job at a charter school where they were 3 and 8, took them to 8 and 3. Next year, 10 and 1, found a 5A job, kept moving up the competition ladder. They were 0 and 20 over at Barry Goldwater, took them first year to 5 and 5, second year 6 and 4, and now I had a phenomenal opportunity up at Mingus High School, which is in the Cottonwood, Arizona, up in the mountains. It's about an hour and 30 minutes from my home, but I take a really nice drive every day and back 3 hours. Because it's a phenomenal situation. People go, Coach, I can't drive 3 hours a day, and I said, well, if you love something, you'll drive 4. You'll drive whatever. So I've been really blessed, man. But youth football has molded me, and people that have played me, that got to know me,
They were like, Coach, those are some of the baddest dudes I've ever seen in my life play football at that age. So disciplined, so structured. And we got to the point where we were turning down kids. You had to try out, for 3 years in a row. They were like, sorry, I'm not going to take a kid that's been with me since he's been 8, right? And a lot of coaches do this. And this hot shot comes in from down the way, and you don't have a relationship with him or his parents. And it ends up working out in the long run sometimes. And I've learned to just stick with who you develop. Sorry, you're a phenomenal athlete, but I've had this boy since 8, and he does a great job, and he's put in the work. And we just kind of ride with our team. We ride with our family. We don't like change. Football is about consistency, and it's about relationships. Right now with your team, Matt, the way I look at it is this. I could come there, right, and you could hand your whole team over to me and my staff, and it's going to be different, right? It's going to be different. If you come to me and I hand you over everything that I have and you coach it, it's going to be different because it's people is what makes this thing special. Real unique, special people. And I've been searching high and low for real special coaches and people, and I just don't bring anybody into my life anymore. I try to keep football business and keep personal always, but at the same time, I can't help but share that passion and love for kids, and if they do need help, if they are struggling in any area, it's been a blessing all the way around, man. It really has. But
let me ask you a question about that coaching piece, because I think that is really huge and hard for us youth coaches, right? Because as you know, 99.999% of youth coaches are volunteers. Yeah. A lot of them are dads that just like raise their hand. Every organization has their core coaches that they can lean on. Maybe the head coach is in place every year, but pretty much those staffs are kind of reset every year, besides like maybe 1 or 2 dudes on the youth side, right? So you really have to be not only have an eye for talent for the kids, but you got to have an eye for talent for the coaches. And so I'd love to hear what are when you're talking to a dude and you're like, hey, I'm thinking about bringing this guy on to coach for me, and you're sitting having that coffee with them or having whatever you're doing just to kind of break that barrier and see if you guys can mesh. What are the things you're looking at? What are the keys that you're looking for in a coach that you're like, that they can mesh with what you're trying to do?
For me, I try to ask questions. It's a great question that you asked. This is how I look at it in my mind. I try to find every reason not to hire a person before I hire them.
I like that.
I try to find every reason not to. And when I can't find a reason not to, then I hire them. Because if you're the head and you're in charge, you're the head of the organization, you're the head coach of that team, it is your job to create an environment that you could work in with someone where I tell all my coaches, we throw our egos over the fence. Our team, we throw our egos over the fence. We have a thing that, and Coach Smith is the one that invented this, and I really can't lie. I stole it and kind of made it my own, but it's beautiful because it's the word act, and it's about attitude, execution, and effort. And if you're not doing anything to coach attitude, if you're not doing anything to coach effort, right, or execution, there's no conversation that needs to be placed when we're coaching football. Because the worst case scenario, I'll tell you, if you're not a great X and O guy and you don't understand the schematics, right, that's okay. That's all right. But coach hustle, coach effort, coach love them up. Don't say things. I tell all my coaches, I told a coach one time, I said, if I feel that any of my head coaches are not using this verbiage, then when our evaluations come up at the end of the year, I'll be looking for somebody else, just straight up, because it sets the precedence where if he's saying scoop and you're saying reach, that's not the same word. They're not comprehending the information the same. We all call that block reach. We all call that block hinge. And going back to it's funny you mentioned, the air raid. I love the Franklin system, but I'm a wing guy. A wing T dude.
Love it.
I want to say traditional, but I've kind of created my own style with it to where I run air raid a little bit within that high-low concept, that dig and that drag to the heels of the D lineman. I use that all the time, so I've been able to take pieces of things that I feel like are are phenomenal, easy to explain, causes a lot of confusion, and then rep it 1,000 times till it's perfect. Just taking something really simple, because, out of that high-low, you could tag 4 different guys, right? And always have a check down and always have success. I mean, nobody at the youth level knows how to cover that, unless you got some elite coaches, right? So I try to coach the coaches up as much as possible without making them feel. I don't ever want to make my coaches feel like stupid, like they don't know something. No, man. You were at that stage, right, where you had to go through a learning process and didn't know what 20 or 21 personnel was, and what these words meant and how they executed them, because the verbiage in each program is different, and you have to learn the verbiage. It's like out in Africa, right? How many languages are out in Africa? Yeah, exactly. 100,000 languages, right? It's all different.
Totally. Yeah, no, and I love the coaching piece on it, man, because it is such a unique thing to us. It sounds like, very similar to some degree at high school, but the youth piece is so big, because for me, it's like, yeah, do you dig in? Like, if there's a video to go watch on linebackers, if you want to be linebacker coach, are you going to put the time in to go figure it out yourself? Or am I going to have to tell you everything? Or are you going to come to me with like, hey, here's my ideas about linebacker. Do you have anything else? Like, just if you're willing to put in the work with me, I can definitely work with you. Obviously, you got to have some intangibles, but like, if you're willing to put in the work, especially at this youth level, and really get down in the dirt with me and spend the extra time breaking down film, because maybe you really like film. Like, we just happen to like film. Some of us just do. It's fun to us. But like, if we can just find those guys, it really will help. And then you can just delegate, right? Like right now, my whole goal of, I'm taking advantage this off season by running my camps and my company, but I've got coaches in there that are going to help me for T-Birds for our tackle program, learning from the air raid stuff in my other camps, because I'm trying to enable them. So when we get to the season, maybe I can let go of these 3 drills on the air raid side, so I can go now coach O-line like I really want to. Like, that's really where I want to go, but not enough coaches know this one piece. So really enabling these coaches, if we're getting any messages across tonight to these guys, find the right people, enable them to do what you need to do, and then you got to trust them. If you get them in the right spot, just trust them and let them go.
Keep it simple, and communication takes place before or after practice. Sometimes not in the middle. Little communication does, but it takes a lot of. I call it layering. Like a piece of paper. You just put one piece of paper on top of another. That's the way that I want my coaches to teach. I want them to explain it the right way. I want the kid to ask the word, do you understand? Do you understand? Show me that you understand. Okay, let's go. Even when hiring coaches, have them maybe do some board work with you. Sit down. Say, how would you defend this? Show me, what your favorite running back drill is. Can you draw up some drills and how you do them? And, I just let them show you who they are. Because if you don't do all the talking, right, which coaches love to talk, right? So, and you be the listener, because it's important to listen, and you can really find out what a guy's skill set is, and really, I kind of do a trial period for like, a week or two sometimes, where I'll say, look, we're going to hire you, but within these 2 weeks, if I feel like it's not a fit, we're gonna meet up again and then go from there, because sometimes you got to see it for real. You just can't assume, that things are going to be a certain way. I've made some bad hires before, and it's because I didn't ask the questions that I needed to ask and do some of the things that I needed to do as a coach. You just kind of assume, or you're looking for somebody, or you're desperate to fill this position, and sometimes that doesn't always work out well. You could blend your running backs and O-line until you find out what you need. So
totally. Coach Chap out there, Coach the Y from the audience, he chimed in out there. So that's exactly right. We were trying to coach the Y. One of my biggest pet peeves with coaches, and I have to, like, after practice, check them a little bit, is like, when I'm asking a kid, why did you do this instead of that, or why'd you do what you just did? A lot of coaches will chime in and try to help him and give him the answer. I'm like, no, we're not trying to like call the kid out, but if he doesn't understand why he's doing something, then how is he ever going to know how to do it in the game when the pressure's on and everything's happening? So That's a big.
Having dads as coaches and kids on the team is a real unique situation sometimes too. When you're trying to, get that fit, and at the end of the day, he wants what's best for his kid, but you got to make sure that he also wants what's best for his team, for the team that he plays for, because you're creating habits, and I tell people all the time, I don't do slot machine parents as a youth football coach. People that take, right? There's no give. They just want to take from you. They just want to call you and talk to you about I'm not a psychiatrist, right? I'm a football coach, right? I love your son, but your son's going to be a D tackle in a 6 technique for us, and he's going to do this every play because he's the best at it.
Right.
I know he was a running back last year, but in my mind, I'm thinking y'all were 3-10. You're 3-8.
There's a reason.
Now we're 10-0, and he's a D tackle. Coaches. That's why you're the coach and they're the parent. And you got to really decipher, who you want in your life and who you don't. Sometimes, it's very important. Right.
Yeah. And so I wanted to ask you about philosophy-wise, because there seems to be two kind of sides of the fence on, you're describing, you start with the team in youth and you literally stay with that team until they graduate out to high school. With the daddy ball issues that comes with youth sports, as much as you want to say, we weed them out, and we do too. Like we try to put these parents to the test, so they don't even have an option to coach their kid initially. And if they immediately say, I don't want to coach, then we know that they're not there to coach football. Right. They're really there to coach their kid. Right. So really trying to make sure that we stay on track with that. One of the things that we do at our organization, and it was like this when I started coaching, so I didn't set this precedent, but I find it interesting, the difference between staying with one team all the way through versus what we do is we try to just set coaches at each level and have that consistency. So they, in our minds, the 8th grade, the 8-9U coach has a different personality from the 10-11 coach. So these kids are getting different coaching styles all the way through and then up through. And I don't know which one's right or wrong. I see a lot more success on the field, to be honest, the way you guys did it, because maybe there's a little bit more cohesion from that one coach all the way through. Right. But there's pros and cons to both. So I don't know if you've ever thought about that, or if it was just like, that's the way they did it, so that's what we did, and we kicked some butt doing it. Do you have any thoughts on that?
When I started my organization, I just said, this is our system. This is what we're going to run. If you don't want to run this system, then find somewhere else, to coach. And my screen just changed. Hold on here.
Oh yeah, take your time. So Mike Hardwick out there in Oxford, Mississippi. How's it going? Checking in. Your ability and body will determine where you play. Exactly. I mean, no matter what they want to do, if the best thing that you can offer, if you're an above average D tackle and a below average tight end, you're playing above average for me at D tackle, 100%. Mark Stamper, one of our coaches out there, wanted to ask you, Coach Pro, what kind of advice would you give a person who would want to coach on your team? So somebody coming in saying, hey, coach, I want to coach for you. Give me some advice so I can come back later and try to do that.
Okay, let me do this. I'm going to answer that question. Let me find my charger before this computer dies.
Okay, yeah. Handle that. All right, I'm going to bring in Jason Ross real quick. Hey, Jay. What's up, man? How you doing?
Good. How you doing?
Good, man. How's life?
Oh, getting by.
Yeah?
Yeah. The first week of the NFL season was rough for me this week, though, that's for sure.
Oh, bro. I just got spanked right now before I came on the show. Had to, take a breath. So frustrating watching Jimmy Garoppolo. He's freaking killing me, dude.
It's even harder for me to watch Baker Mayfield.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, I don't know. That game was going to be tough from the beginning, but the Niners they should have won, so that's killing me. But it was nice to sit down this morning and watch some NFL football. I'll tell you that.
Sure.
I was sitting there looking at the lineup for today on DirecTV. So cool. Coach Pro's trying to get set up. You got any updates from your neck of the woods, buddy, that you have? Anything new?
No, I was just stopping in to be part of the show, and nothing new, just kind of putting some stuff together for the guys that I see every couple days a week in our extended off season.
Nice, right on. I appreciate that.
So.
All right, cool. So let me do this. I'm just gonna jump to Facebook real quick. I wanted to read a few things that we've been seeing on that we've been seeing. A lot of coaches, now that the season has started, they're checking in with updates, right? And you guys all know Brad Thurber out there in Utah, and he coaches his son. I believe he's 10 and under, I want to say. So the kid's been lighting it up down there. He's a lefty quarterback. We've showed his clips before, and I can show you a couple right here on Facebook. But last week, and they've been crushing kids like 33-0, 48-0, whatever. Last week, his son went 11 for 12 with 7 TDs at passing, and 5 different kids caught touchdown passes, running air raid at the 10U position, at the 10U level. So that's not the only one. I got 3 or 4 more messages here of other youth coaches lighting it up on their first scrimmage or their first game of the season. I want to just acknowledge that. I'm trying to get Brad to come back on so he could break it down. I know he'd probably be better at showing some of these clips and talking about them. But, you know, here's everyone's favorite play here. If we can see it real quick. Run it back. Run it back. Nice and easy. You know, he has that motion play that to throw a quick screen. He motions that guy across so he can have some leverage coming into that block. Just get the ball in space, let these kids have some fun. Touchdown. So anyway, I just thought it was kind of cool. I wanted to make sure everyone at home saw that we're starting to get updates from the few of us out there that they get to play. There's some fun stuff going on, and honestly, this air raid is working at the youth level. Like, I mean, even I was a little skeptical of like the 9-year-olds. I just coached that 8 and 9-year-old team a few years ago, and I don't know. Looking back on it, I thought it would be tough, but man, these kids are lighting it up. So just wanted to touch base about that. All right, Coach Pro, you back?
Ready to rock? Yeah, I'm good. I had to go find a charger. I was just gonna disappear off this whole thing.
All right, cool. So anyway, I was asking you. Well, let's answer Coach. Let's answer Coach's questions first, and then I want to get back to my question about following kids through a program versus like kind of like letting them come through and have different coaches. But just to get back to you on that. So Mark Stamper did ask, if someone were to come to you and say, what's some advice for me to get in position to coach for you at a later time? What's the advice you would give me to go work on?
I mean, really, it's just, you want to be a student of the game. You know, you want to be someone that loves the sport enough to where you learn how to use huddle. You know, you learn about different ways that you can, contribute to your coaching staff, and just bring in who you are as a person. You know, don't try to be anybody else. Find out what your skill set is. What do you love to coach? What is your passion? You know, yeah. and then go after that. You know, my passion is running backs, right? I love running backs. You know, right. I was a running back. I was a tight end. But I love running backs more, and the run game to me is a really huge part of what I do. So I try to be, the best that I can be in trying to implement new techniques. But for someone that's coming in, what I do is I put all my drills on a card. So I have a card of front and back. It has 16 drills, and I put those on a card and I laminate that card, and I take that card with me everywhere I go. So if I'm at a practice and I get some time, or if it's an offensive day and we're going into Indy, these are the things that I know my running backs have to learn to be successful. So put your drills on a card. Try to think about how you can perfect that drill. Like every drill that I do ends with tackling a bag defensively. Doesn't matter what it is. I got kids run through speed ladders. After they get done with speed ladders, they tackle the bag.
Hit something.
Right? Because that's what happens. What happens every play, right? Every coach knows that. But what makes you special to be on our staff to enhance us, to make us taste better. I tell people all the time, I don't want microwave thinking, and I don't want microwave coaching. Nothing tastes good in a minute, right? I want it in grandma's oven. You know,
right.
I want it to take time. I want it to be thought out. I want it to have some substance and some ingredients to it. You know, but I had a guy that came to me and wanted to coach, right? And God bless him. You know, he was one of the greatest men I've ever worked with, but he wasn't a strong coach. He just wasn't. But I'll tell you what, he's the best stat guy and hit chart guy that I've ever had in my entire life. And he's still part of our team. He's still involved in what we do. But you know what? He does these two things great. And we make him the king of those two things great. Nobody gets involved with any of those things. He's the guy. And he actually has employees now that we have working for him on Huddle to get what we need to make sure that he's successful in breaking down some mathematics and schematics on the reports that we do to be successful. Why can't you do it for youth, right? I mean, right. I've watched more youth football on film than I think anybody in America. You know, I mean, I would film their games. We would spend the money to get it done right. We bring out a sky pod to a youth football game. If we needed to be successful and win, and it was for a national title, we would pay to have games filled in other states and have it sent to us professionally. You know, those were fundraisers that we did. You know, we got to that point. But guy that wants to work for me has to have a good heart and has to love kids first. You know, it's one thing to be encouragement, right? Goes a lot further than criticism. You know, I can run up a kid's spine with my words, right? But what are you really doing psychologically to that dude, right? It's not what makes that dude tick. It's not what makes him better. But I have 3 players that when I raise my tones and I change my tone, I get the most out of them. I got another 6 players that when I raise that tone, they shut down on me. They don't perform. You know what I mean? So you got to be – I interview all my kids. I find out, first question, what's your favorite color? Half of the coaches don't even know their kids. You don't even know your kids. You've been coaching them for 2 years, don't know anything about them. You know why? You don't talk to them. You don't find out what makes him tick. The first thing that we do with our programs is we don't even coach football for the first week. It's about relationships and getting to know one another. And every coach rotates, and every kid, we rotate in groups, and they have to answer questions that we put on paper. Where are you from? Where you were born? What's your favorite color? What's your favorite meal? What do you do on your free time? What's your favorite video game? I mean, you don't even know that, you know, I had 2 players I didn't even know were adopted. You know, I didn't have 2 players I didn't know that lived in a group home at first. I didn't know that they didn't have moms or that his mom passed away. You know, I had a kid, you know, I remember I was coaching a youth football game my first year as a youth coach, and I got absolutely hammered by a really good team. And I'm like, you know what, I'm going to go rip these kids' friggin' heads off. I was so embarrassed as a coach. Yeah. I was so embarrassed, my ego.
Because it's your ego, right, exactly.
My ego, not the kids. The kids did exactly what they were told to do by me at the time. It was to be horrible, right? It was to be horrible because that's how I was coaching. I wasn't coaching well. It was all about me, and I wasn't execute what I needed to execute on the field. And the kids go shake hands. And I'll tell you what, my worst day and my best day as a coach happened on the same day. I'm going through, we get hammered. I think we got mercy ruled. I don't think we scored. I'm going through to shake hands with these guys, and I don't even shake any of their hands. Talking 15 years ago. Yeah. Shaking one of them hands, you know, back home mentality, you know, a-hole mentality, right? Not being a stand-up guy, not having integrity. Right. And I didn't shake none of these guys' hands, and they're like, you know what those guys are saying, right? This guy's, you know, an a-hole, right? And I turn around and I'm walking back, and I'm fitting to take all my frustrations out on all these kids. And as I'm walking back, a kid runs past me, and he screams out like at a corn concert, "They got Rice Krispie treat!" Loud as it was crazy. I'm like, and all the kids are like, "Yeah," you know. And I'm sitting here like, and I start laughing. And at that very moment, God took my face off my body. He spun it around, punched it upside the jaw, snapped it back on my spine. And I walked over there and I said, you know what, boys, I apologize for my attitude. I apologize for not coaching you at a high level and for treating some of you and talking to some of you the way that I have. It's not been with high integrity and character. And this display of football today is a direct reflection of my coaching, and I accept full responsibility. And I promise you, I'm going to change the way we do things. And that group said, and I had two parents that said, Coach, I don't know what happened, but if you wouldn't have said that, we were out of here the next week. You know, like it was that bad. And
wow.
And I didn't know. I didn't know what I was doing.
Learn. That's how we learn, man.
But I cared enough, you see, to change. I knew that, you know what, I can't, you know, I'm not making a name that I want for myself like this. I'm not treating people with respect. I'm not talking to kids in the right tones. I'm not communicating properly because I am not educated as a coach. I am not where I need to be as a teacher. So I went back and got a lot of mentorship and talked to a lot of people that I knew what they were doing. And I listened and asked a lot of questions. And then I made, you know, Coach Doug Provenano, you know, with these little pieces of different things over meeting a lot of great people. You know what I mean? And it's just bring the best version of you, but be a coach that can change a kid's life and be in his life forever. A relationship coach. He could call you at 40 to see how you're doing. He shows up at your funeral when you pass away. That's how you know. Be that type of coach.
Well, I think that's so big, man. And you've touched on it twice now, the relationship piece of this. And I have a hard time, and I consider myself an old school coach. Like the way I coach, I'm very direct. I hold kids accountable. Yeah, I do get fired up, but I try to maintain a level of professionalism to it. Obviously, they're just kids. So number one, that's it. But a lot of old school coaches, and more than the new school guys, they tend to kind of lean on that old school mentality where it's like, I'm gonna tell you what to do. You're gonna go play that position, or you're gonna do this and that, and you're gonna like it. And fine. Like when we were 20 years ago, 30 years ago, that was okay, and that's how we were raised, and that was the way it was all set up. But that's not the way it is anymore. And the biggest thing that I hate is like when people say you got to coach all kids the same. And what you're talking about a second ago, like these three kids respond to this, and these three kids respond to this. This is reality. This is real world coaching in today's modern era. And you hear all the highest level professional coaches, every single one of their players to a man says, why is he such a great coach? It's because he cares about me. I know that he knows me. He knows what's going on in my life. Mm-hmm. And he cares what happens in my life. Yeah. And we can do this with 8-year-olds, and we can do this with 12-year-olds. Don't just yell at a kid, get off the video games. Like, I'm like, get at me tonight. I'm going to beat your butt on Madden tonight, right? Like, I'm about to take you out at Call of Duty.
Right.
Because, don't just lean on what our old parents, like, get off the video games, get off the couch. Like, fine. But jump in with them and go joke about that with them or something else. But the relationship piece, it's a must. If you're not doing that, you're just, all you're doing is just wasting your own time and probably wasting the head coach's time.
It is.
If you're not that kind of guy that's gonna joke, walk the sideline with a kid and not talk football on the after practice and talk about whatever their girlfriend or whatever's going on with school. So I love that you said that, and that's a huge message to get out there to everybody.
It is.
Just be a dude to these guys before anything else.
It is just be a good person, kids, and make sure that as a staff that you guys are speaking the same language, and you have to follow up every day with a quick 5-minute meeting about something that happened during practice, because you weren't over there. He was. Hey, how'd everything go? You know what, Johnny, man, his right foot's been really bothering him. If you wouldn't have had that little after 3-minute meeting, you wouldn't know. Or he's got definitely, hey, something's going on at home, man. He was crying, in between the drill. Don't know really why, Coach. You want to talk to him after practice. I mean, these kids, especially more than ever in this day and age, there's so many things that they're thinking that they don't know how to explain with words, and
for sure.
And there's a lot of different emotions and a lot of different things that are going on in their head, and there's nothing more important than patience. You know, I tell people all the time, you know, that if time were for sale, we would all go to the store to buy it, and it's not for sale. You know, and I had inside of my son's wrestling club, we had a wrestler pass away. Liver transplant. It was really sad. I mean, one of the best wrestlers in the United States, and a couple months later, he had passed away. And they asked me to speak, and I wrote a eulogy, and I said in that eulogy, and I thought long and hard about it, and I said, you know, if time were for sale, we'd all line up at the store to buy it, but it's not for sale. It's not. The time never stops, and the most important thing you could give someone is time, because once you give someone your time, it's more important than money. It's more important than anything. You are actually investing something into their life. You know, it's a deposit, right? And for me, it's essential nowadays. They want to talk about essential. What's essential is you caring and actually having a relationship. If someone's going to come out there every day, like we coach for free, right, as youth coaches. We make no money. There's no salary stipend. There's nothing. It's all for the love of the game first, but it's also has to be in your heart. I've coached 3 teams that I did not have a child on, right? There's not many people that you'll find when their kid isn't on that team at youth football. My son was a second string player for 2 years on my team. And you know what? He quit. Me and his mom were divorced, and he had a way out through mom's house. And and I let him go through the process. I wanted him to play more than ever. I was devastated when he didn't play. But you know what? He got into wrestling, and I supported it. And he's still wrestling, and he loves it, but he doesn't play football anymore. But you know what? I still coached that team for another 2 years. And we won 2 national titles and took runner-up in Florida, and placed 3rd and took runner-up right out in Florida. But you know what? I made a commitment to the team just because you're not doing it. Like I tell my kids I'll be coaching long after you graduate. I'll still be doing it, right? I'll still be doing it because it's what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I've already figured that out. But you got to bring the best version of that every day, man. You really have to.
Sir.
You know,
that's so huge to let these kids go through the journey, because I'd much rather them go through that journey of battling back to a starting position, or understanding what it's like to not have a starting or not play a lot now in youth, than have that hit junior year of their high school career, or even in college. Like, actually, that was a big that actually threw me back when I got to college. I'm like, I'm buried 6 people deep back here. Like, like I'd rather them have to go through that journey now, where I'm there to support them, or let them find their own way. I love that you did that, because a lot of dads would have been like, no, you're freaking playing football, bro. Like, a lot of dads would have done that. You know what I'm saying? Then he would have hated you and the game, right? So you did the right thing, man. I love that, and really letting kids find their way and really feel the journey like that. That's huge, man.
Yeah,
huge.
Yeah. I was a head coach my first 2 years of high school. I was real lucky. I had my son on my high school team, right? That was really, really worked out. But his senior year, I ended up changing jobs, and I took a head coaching job. And I remember I was down at Poston Butte out on the outskirts of Maricopa County, and we won in overtime against a team that we never beat before my first year. And my son was playing 10 miles away on a Friday night, and that one was tough. That was a tough one, not physically being there, but I made a commitment to be a coach, and I made a commitment to be a father. And you know how me and my son worked it out? Is we talked about it. We just talked. We sat down and said, I love you so much that I will quit this job. If you want me to quit this job, I will. I love you so much because I know that you want me and I need to be there. But if you are okay with it and you could handle it, and not tell me that because you're trying to please me, let me know. And we talked about it. He said, Dad, you're going to be, this is what my son said to me. He goes, the greatest part of you that I know is you as a coach. But I also know you as being a great father, but it's like, it's a little bit of both for me. And I want you to coach. Dad, I'm not playing college football. I'm going to the Air Force. If you can try to be there on that bye week, I'll tell you what, I'll be I said, I will be there on that week for
Yeah.
sure, you know. And we just talked about it, and it was hard. You know, there was tears involved, you know, in that conversation. But, you know, to this day, we both agreed to those terms. And our love and our that situation has never been you weren't there for me, you know.
Yeah.
You weren't. No.
Because of the communication, though. Like that's a hard thing to do as a dad or a kid.
And
to
because
have that conversation.
My son has seen what I've done. You know, he's seen how hard that I've worked. He sat there and watched the speed bumps and all the no's that happened before, and how being a part of situations that you knew weren't a great fit, but you had to go sit there and learn and shut your mouth and take what you can take, knowing that you were destined for greater things. You know, only you know that as a person. You know if it's a fit or not. And for me, it's just putting a lot of thought into everything that you're doing before you do it.
Live intentionally, dude. I don't know. At some point I heard that phrase in my mid-20s after I was like floating between random jobs, and it struck me, and I put it all over my computer from then on out. Live intentionally. And like I try to pass that. It's exactly what you're saying. Just have a purpose every day, right? Like I'm going to do this today. I'm about to do this one thing really well today, and just be intentional about it instead of just like I was floating from job to job. Just you know, man. the money takes me here. Oh, good. But I hate my job. I come home angry every day, right?
Right.
You just be intentional about it. So you got a what's up, Coach D from Anthony Johns out there.
Yeah, Anthony Johns, his son trained with me a little bit. He's also a coach in the Valley. Really good dude. Yeah, I know Anthony Johns. Yeah.
And Mark Stamper, you know, he's loving the conversation. It's super deep, and I appreciate you opening up with us, Coach, because it's this is a lot of personal stuff. But you know what?
No, it is, man.
Football is a personal game, man.
It is a personal game, and it involves families. You know, it's human development, man. You know, more than it is football. If that kid loves you and trusts you and respects you, I mean, there's really nothing that he won't do for you. But you have to get that first. And you get that by first with being a consistent coach. You know, we have a thing that we've implemented. It's been dress code. This is how we look every day. The kid doesn't wear what he needs to wear. There's a penalty. There's a punishment.
Interesting.
And we have 3 player packs I've always sold to my players, and there'll be a bunch of different different outfits in there, and they have to wear red and gray and red. And think about it. You know, do research on the military, a drill sergeant. How does a drill sergeant whip a couple hundred kids into shape within a couple days when he joins the military? Well, uniform, right? Structure, discipline, communication, implementing discipline for these things that are not completed. Your towel's a little bit over to the left when it's stacked up during boot camp. That's a demerit, right?
Right. Do it right. Do it right.
You know, it's a military type system with love, you know, but there is consequences for not doing your job. You know, football and wrestling's taught me everything I need to know about life, point blank, period. Being on a football field and being on a wrestling mat, you know, and I tell kids all the time, communication is free. It don't cost $1, right? It doesn't cost $1. It takes 0.3 seconds for you to communicate that you had to stop by here and had something going on and couldn't be on time today, right? That's called respect. But since you didn't do that, we're going to times that by 30, right? And that's going to be the price that you're going to pay for not communicating me, because I told you what the rules were before we started. You know, so I just take it, you know, to where I said we can bear crawl every line on this field, or you can do it this way. That's it. And I guarantee you, after 2 lines, you'll be wishing that you gave just a little bit more effort, you know, because effort takes no ability, brother. It takes none. I tell you, coaches, tell your players this. I refuse to coach effort. I refuse. I won't coach effort. Not at all. You're going to give me everything, whatever that is, whatever his body can do, whatever that, you know, I call it the cell phone curved body, right? Curved back, butt tucked, never did a squat in his life. Physical education teacher, you know, didn't implement some of the things that maybe needed to happen. Who knows? But that kid comes out without playing a sport and decides he wants to play football. How is the experience going to be? Do you say, oh, this kid's not going to be any good for us? Or do you say, hey, check it out. I'm going to put everything into this kid, and I'm going to see what I can turn him into and treat him just like everybody else. Put in that. I have what's called a development coach. So a kid that can't get in the right stance, that doesn't know anything about football, goes to our development coach for 15 minutes a day.
I love that.
What's a first down? How many play? You know, I just start asking him.
Basics. Yeah, the basics.
Where is the right hash? Where's the left hash? Where are the numbers? What is the boundary? What do we call field? What is the acronym for LOS? You know, you just start asking them questions. 15 minutes of a quiz. Kid doesn't know anything about football. Well, you got to teach them how a game works, what the referee, what the flags are. All my kids, we bring a referee in, and we have the referee show all the kids every year what his hand signals are and talk about rule changes. We have a referee that comes in, and we love referees. We love zebras. We tell all my kids that we are the most respectful. We are always respectful. We do not talk to referees, but we're always respectful. Yes, sir. The referee to us are like coaches, because guess what? If you're a staff on the sideline, and you guys aren't carrying yourself with good character, you're saying things, you're heckling the ref, right? He's a human being, right? If he doesn't like you, you never know. You might not get the benefit of the doubt. That affects your kids.
100%.
You know, every time we have a youth football game, I had a parent that I would delegate a gift basket for the refs. They would show up. They have Gatorades, granola bars, hot. We put cool towels in there, all sponsored stuff that we would get. And you know, some of the referees would be like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing," or some wouldn't even touch it and say thank you. You know what? But you always got to consider and love everybody around you and make the situation environment super great. And you do that by showing respect to people. You know,
100%, man.
100%.
I love that idea of bringing them in, and yeah, I mean, we get chirpy on the sideline sometimes, but it's the worst. It's worse when the kids get there and start seeing that, and then they start mimicking it. You're right, man. Well, that's a good point, because even if it's not to get them on your side, it's about respect. I mean, we're teaching life skills, like you said. Accountability is the only reason my kid's playing youth football starting at age 9 when he did. I wasn't sure when he was 7 and 8. I'm like, it doesn't seem like they're hitting each other that hard, but I still had concerns. But the accountability piece that he would learn from it, where he wasn't getting at home, he sure the hell wasn't getting it from Little League baseball or CYO basketball. That's for dang sure.
Right.
And that was what it was tipping point, because I'm like, he needs these skill lessons for accountability and those type of things. And that's well worth any risk of a little kid with pillow fights doing anything to his brain.
Right.
So, hey, Coach, we are an hour and 15 minutes in. I want to be conscious of your time and everyone's time. Let me just wrap up with you by asking you one more question.
Okay.
So we've talked about, and maybe these are the answers to the question already. We've already kind of hear about how you are very much like an air raid coach. And by the way, we've had wing tee coaches on here before breaking down wing tee, how we could use it in the air raid schemes. So, from every account of wing tee, it sounds like philosophy wise, the small playbooks, the amount of reps that you're trying to get in your practices, it's very cohesive with the way that we run our practices. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you probably have a few more plays than us, but it sounds like philosophy and fundamentally they're very hand in hand. But you've had a ton of success. I mean, your record at youth, what was it? What did I say? 237 and 12. That's astounding. Your record in high school is percentage wise, I believe it's right up there about the same, right? So like, you've had all this success at every level. Mike Hardwick, he doesn't run stick. Leave it alone. These air raid coaches are crazy. But you've had success at all these levels. What is the secret sauce? And maybe it's too general of a question. I mean, is it the way you run your practices? Is it the ability to connect with kids on a personal level, but still be able to coach them up? Like, what do you attribute all your success to as a youth and high school coach? If there's a way to quantify that in this conversation, there might not
I'll
be.
tell you what, it has to do with just to keep refining yourself, because the better that I feel about me has a lot to do with how I treat other people, to serve, and practice, structure, simplicity, your EDDs. For me, I have things that I do that are everyday things.
Yep.
Every day, these things have to be done because every day that you do them, you get better at them. Whether it just be this, whether it just be that. And I'll be more than happy to show you some of the drills. I don't post a lot of my stuff online or do that because it's just something that I want to keep private for my training purposes and the money that I've invested in some of the devices. I actually created a training device that I'm having a patent right now. I think you got a glimpse of it the other day, right? In a quick video. That took a lot of time and money, and I invented it while I was eating some egg whites in the morning because I wanted to be more combative, and I wanted to have better hand placement, and I wanted to be a better striker because you can't punch, right? You can't punch, but you can strike. So all we're going to work on is striking, and we're going to strike from different angles. We're going to use med balls. We're going to use weights on the field. We're going to bring kettlebells out to the field. You'll see some stuff, Coach. We're like, dude, this is – but it's about hip mobility and increasing striking and aggressiveness. Aggressive explosion is what I call it. And that only comes from earth. So the body has to learn how to compress and how to explode. So I try to do some real unique things to get that the best that it could be with the time that's allocated. When I say, you know what, I got 52 days to get ready. Well, this is what I know I can accomplish in those days. So I just go one day at a time. I break everything down in a real systematic way, but not to where it can't be explained in 10 minutes either.
Right.
Not when it can't be, keeping it simple. All right. My first day of practice was for my coaches. The kids were there. The kids didn't run a drill because I had to show why? Because we couldn't meet in a room. We couldn't with COVID. I had to figure out another way to still get what I wanted out of my coaches and my kids. But I couldn't use this, and I didn't have the resources, so I had to change and adapt. But I still got what I needed done. It just took one day of time. It took one whole day to explain and to show. And some people go, I'm not wasting that day. Well, I have to, because that day is going to make the 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th really, really smooth to where we can really start to progress. So, it takes a lot of thought, man, and you got to use your instincts. If something's not going right, there's a reason. You got to go figure it out.
Yeah. Well, that's what you keep saying, and it keeps coming back to that. And I believe it, man. You got to educate yourself. And and like we talked about earlier, when you're looking for a coach, are they the ones that are out watching videos like this one to some degree, but are they trying to learn more if they're an offensive mind? Do they want to learn wing T and maybe air raid and then see how these things might mesh? And so if you've got somebody that loves educating themselves, that will take the time to listen to podcasts in the car instead of listening to 80s and 90s R&B mixes from back in the day, are you listening to a podcast? Those are the little things that you can just pick up on. So I love that, man. And yes, I apologize. We didn't even get to your strength and conditioning, and that is that's a pretty common question at this level. I did a video with someone out here named Dave Spitz that runs California Strength. He has a bunch of U.S. power lifters, and we did a show about it. But I definitely would like your take on that as well, how much you can or can't push a kid who's 8 versus who's 11. Then they get to 14. How do you figure that balance out?
I just did a lot of research with strength because, I started looking at Russian philosophy first, on what they did with their children, 50, 60 years ago, when they were, because part of the Russian training regimen is wrestling. You have to be either a gymnast or a wrestler. And a lot of these, I don't know exactly, I can't remember the name, but they're regions. They're communities of where people live. And within that state or city, as we call a city, they would have areas where part of their physical education regimen was to be flexible and do tumbling and do gymnastics and do certain things And then from there, it would start to accumulate to kettlebells and different weights and different things because, Russians is what the kettlebell system is what really just threw massive strength on Russians and powerlifting, right? But before powerlifting and bars and all that was refined, they were using cast iron and they were doing different types of movements that no one else was doing, and it involved a lot of flexibility. So for me, looking at Eastern philosophy, monks, flexibility is huge. Monks can do things with the body that no one else in the world can do. Well, I always say, well, how does he do that? How does he condition his body to do that? I want to know. And I'll just dig deep into the research and talk to people and ask questions and read books. I got a book that's like half English, half Mandarin that talks about, strength and flexibility, right? So, I mean, it's just what can I do with the resources that I have to get my kids stronger? Well, I couldn't afford, I couldn't bring weights out to the field every day. So, but I could bring bars out. So I ended up having a guy that had a truck, and we just delegated bars and kettlebells. And I had people donate bars and donate kettlebells. And I taught kids how to power snatch, power clean, and power lift at 8, 9 years old with girl bars. They didn't even know what they were doing.
Right.
But they just learned how to open up their hips and open up their body. And then we brought resistance bands on how to stretch and flexibility. How can I stretch the muscle further at practice before we start training? Because I only got 23 kids. If I lose an average of 4 kids on the season, well, now I can't be as successful because you're going to lose the injuries in games. But I feel like if you implement flexibility and strength at the same exact time and hip mobility, deep squatting, butt to calves, perfect posture, perfect stance, and then teach them how to explode and how to do the movement properly, it enhances their athletic ability like you've never seen. And you can take a kid with, I call it an iPhone boy, right? You take an iPhone boy who's never played a sport, put a bar in his hand, and he's going to crumble, like some broken crackers at first. But you know what? Within a couple days of patience and words of affirmation and some motivation, that kid's going to stand upright just like he did when he was a baby, and he had to, roll over to his belly, get up to his knees, and then look for some leverage to stand up. Right, the foot had to be underneath his glute for that baby to stand up on the first day of his babies. Right, so for me, I just think different, man. I'm kind of weird with it, but I have my own strength company here out in Surprise, Arizona. I service a lot of kids. A lot of my service is recovery. When kids are all banged up and they're in season, they don't come to my compound for strength. They come for recovery. So we break it up into seasonal work. Crazy dad doesn't need to bring the kid to lift after he's training 6 days a week. He needs recovery. He needs flexibility. He needs the body to relax a little bit so that it can sleep, regenerate, and recover. So I take all these things into play, man. We just did, I think, we got super blessed up at my high school. I think we had about an $80,000 renovation total with weights. And it was such a blessing because I had an opportunity to get all the things that I've been wanting to get for a long period of time and implement that into our system. So, but we can talk strength. If any of your youth coaches are, well, coach, how can we implement strength into our youth practice? I will show you. I will show you because we did it. And, my kids started their freshman year. Every kid that played for me starts their freshman year, and he's the best power clinger, the best technique, best form in his freshman weights class or his summer weights class. He is the model. He is going to be the model for the rest of his team. So I feel like any high school that these kids go to, you're helping someone. You're going to help some kids see, well, I need to look like Johnny. Well, Johnny's been doing power clean since he's been, 7th grade. Well, that's why he looks so great when he's a freshman. So, there's so many things. I mean, we could sit here all day long and talk this way, but
let's try to do this again and try to focus on that because we get a lot of questions about that. And, I want to hear different perspectives. I know, I see your Creature Athletics. And by the way, if you guys want to check it out, if any of you guys are in the Arizona area, you said it's Surprise, Arizona. Is that the city?
Surprise, Arizona.
Surprise, Arizona. You guys are out there. Check out Creature Athletics for sure because I did post. I forwarded one of your posts from earlier today into this group just so they could see it. So you guys just have to go to our middle school air raid group. You'll see Coach Pro's post in there, and then follow those links to his website if you want more information. But I think it would be a very valuable conversation, because especially when we're in training camp, and hopefully we're going to get one. It looks like CIF is really moving towards the winter football season out here in NorCal. So
I heard.
This would be a great time to be able to implement some strength training that, I'm not schooled in that. I never really dove into it. And we'd love to have someone like you kind of teach us a little bit more. So let's try to do that sometime soon.
Start trying to collect bars. That's what I'll tell you. We have a thing a program. It's called Love the Bar, and we just teach the kids how to use a bar, balance, stability, and we just start with a bar. And you know what? You can power cling on grass. You can do all these things, and you start with that. And I'll tell you what: if it's an 8-year-old, get a little bar. If he's real little and doesn't have a lot of strength, we start with pipes. So you can start. You can start with anything, and I've just learned I want my athletes to, whatever ability God gave them, I want to enhance it. Yep. So I try to do these things and find different training methods to enhance it. So,
right on.
Yeah, man.
Cool.
Just kind of made it my own.
All right, Coach. Well, I got an hour and a half of your time. I really appreciate it. I love the journey, man. I mean, if the title of A Football Life wasn't already taken, I would have branded this conversation of football life, because very much like you, I was teetering in 8th grade when I found football, and it put me on the straight. I mean, I got into a lot of trouble in middle school.
Yeah,
football literally just set me in an actual direction versus me just kind of floating around and looking for trouble every weekend, basically. Yeah. So very much like you, football, I attribute it to help my life, if not save it. Your football journey is much more dramatic, but it even goes to show even more so. Gosh, it's a great game, and we find great people like you that can use what they learned and the hard way to use this sport to teach kids the right way from as early on as possible. Coach, we appreciate you and what you've done with your career and using football as that platform.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Well, anybody, any of your friends, anybody out there that wants some mentorship, advice, if, not to say I know more than anybody else, but I've been through some things and I could definitely help. And I love to, I'm learning how to share more and more of my knowledge with people, because I want to see people successful that are doing it the right way and really have that heart for the kids. And, it's essential now, man. There's nothing better than starting something, doing it the right way, and finishing, strong, and finishing to where you can see, man, look what we did here. We started out here, look where we're at now. And growth happens sometimes when you're not looking. It happens when you're not looking. You turn around, you look back, you go, wow, we have came a long way. Yeah. So you gotta learn how to appreciate that stuff too, because you only get this life one time, and that time, like I said, it's can't be, once you give it, it can't be taken back. It just keeps rolling. So make sure that you guys are spending that time wisely. Make sure it's good time, and that your wife approves of the time first. That way you don't end up in a situation where she ain't too happy, right? So
yeah, right on.
Communication free, right? Don't cost.
Yeah.
But
I love that,
brother. I respect what you're doing, and I'd love to get you guys a game out here if that were possible. Guys, come out here and play some Arizona teams. I got a field that I know we can get you on up here and get you some competition, just to say, hey, man, we only played one game, but it was the most awesome trip to Arizona.
Hey, man.
And if I could do anything on my behalf to get the kids some free lodge, or do whatever for the night, I'll do everything. I'll use every connection I had to make that happen, because seeing kids happy is really what drives me, regardless. So let me know if you ever need me, man.
I will. I'm gonna take you up on that offer, man. I honestly think that would turn 2020 for these kids a whole different thing. Going and traveling, spending a weekend away, playing with other kids that's not from their area, meeting other coaches like you, and man, I just love that we reconnected, Doug, and I really appreciate you dropping knowledge for these guys. And honestly, it's great. I hadn't thought about our connection for so long, and then when you popped up and I see everything you're doing somewhat in the same world as me, and you've had such success, and you've been able to help kids and change lives. It makes me feel good to know, how far, gosh, we both come, but for you, man, we heard about your journey, and I'm just proud of you, dude. So great reconnecting with you. And yeah, let's stay in contact moving forward, and hopefully we get you back on with some strength and conditioning stuff for these coaches.
Absolutely. All right, man. God bless. Thanks, brother.
All right,
Bye.
Doug. Talk to you soon, bud.